A federal judge has temporarily blocked the Trump administration from deploying 200 members of the Oregon National Guard into Portland.
Judge Karen Immergut, a Trump appointee, sided with Oregon state leaders on Saturday, blocking the deployment and saying that the president exceeded his constitutional authority and likely violated the 10th Amendment. Now, that order does expire in 2 weeks, pending a longer injunction. Of course, the White House vowed to appeal, telling the New York Times, quote, President Trump exercised his lawful authority to protect federal assets and personnel in Portland following violent riots and attacks on law enforcement. We expect to be vindicated by a higher court.
In addition to the appeal, Trump is also looking to other states and their National Guards to deploy to Portland in place of the Oregon Guard. Trump reportedly looked at California to mobilize 300 of their Guard troops to Portland after Saturday's ruling, but Judge Immergut said not so fast. In a rare Sunday hearing, the judge granted a temporary restraining order filed by the state of California to once again block the federalization of troops. Governor Gavin Newsom celebrated the decision on X, writing in part, quote, "We just won in court again. The court granted our request for a temporary restraining order, halting any federalization, relocation, or deployment of any Guard members to Oregon from any state. Trump's abuse of power won't stand."
Before that ruling came down on Sunday night, the Pentagon had also called on 400 members of the Texas National Guard to be deployed not just to Portland, but to Chicago as well. And unlike California, that move had the full support of the Texas governor. Governor Greg Abbott posted to X on Sunday, "I fully authorize the president to call up 400 members of the Texas National Guard to ensure safety for federal officials. You can either fully enforce protection for federal employees or get out of the way and let Texas guards do it."
Now, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is speaking out against the deployment of the Texas National Guard, pointing out that the Trump administration didn't discuss or coordinate with him at all, and writing, quote, "We must now start calling it what it is, Trump's invasion. It started with federal agents. It will soon include deploying federalized members of the Illinois National Guard against our wishes, and it will now involve sending in another state's military troops." Pritzker continued, "There is no reason a president should send military troops into a sovereign state without their knowledge, consent, or cooperation."
Well, the reason is the administration argues that federal employees, federal buildings are under attack, and that they have the right to send in troops to deal with that problem. This judge disagrees, so they got to follow the law, and they'll take it to a higher court, and we'll see if a higher court says that well, yes, of course, the president has the ability to protect the safety of their federal buildings inside these cities, inside these states, and the federal government has every right to protect them. This judge disagreed. Fine. I am dubious, as I've said, about sending in national troops to provide a law enforcement service in areas where, if the city and the state doesn't want them there, I think the city and the state are naive for not wanting them there. I think D.C. has been a relative, not perfect, but success story for what better coordination between the federal government and a willing city, a city with a crime problem, can achieve. And it's a positive model, and it would be something like Portland would be well advised to accept it, but they feel differently, so oh well.
Well, I just find it so interesting that the Republican Party and the president of law and order, President Trump, is trying to circumvent the law and go
to have
out,
order.
To have chaos. It's like his National Guard in places is going to cause chaos if there's not cooperation with local leaders. Like you said, Muriel Bowser ended up cooperating with President Trump, and D.C. is a very different situation than all other states. And even Megyn Kelly was very clear about sending troops into our cities is really not the way forward. And she will not side with, she said it specifically about J.B. Pritzker, and she's like, I'm going to be on J.B. Pritzker's side on this one. I don't think it's appropriate. So I think the president is trying to overstep and circumvent, so if Oregon does not want the help, you're going to go to Chicago and then Texas. You have to be blocked by a federal judge twice in order to stop moving forward. Why don't you just try coordinating with J.B. Pritzker? Pick up the phone. You're the president who wants this so bad, saying that we are in a state of emergency, because that would be the reason why. That would be the reason why we would call in the National Guard a state of emergency. And people there are saying, well, it's not an emergency to us. So, a lot of Republicans lie on the fact that states should govern themselves, and they're not allowing the space for coordination or for states to govern themselves. And I think we're setting a dangerous precedent when you go to other states and say, well, I'm just going to take your National Guard if I'm being blocked in Oregon. And people in Oregon, I've been seeing local news reports, they're literally like, wait, what? We don't want the national, people are literally saying that. I'm just watching the local news there, and people are confused.
Some people are saying
yes, and there's enough of them
local
to be,
news you can interview
If they
whatever.
interview 10 people on the street and 10 people are still confused, well, I mean,
Okay,
we can work on
They
this.
could have interviewed 10 people who agreed with it, and they just didn't show that on camera. Those things are never.
Well, if you think the local news is not to be taken seriously and biased, my point is that there's been several reporting that people there are like, well, of course crime can be cleaned up. Of course we can move forward and build our city better, but that requires some coordination. And so the people there, the voters there, these are all people that put J.B. Pritzker in his position, that put Trump in his position. So then, therefore, let's just coordinate and work together instead of trying to bully our way into the way we want, especially when there are judges saying, not so fast, and we have to keep doing this the wrong way. So we can do this the easy way with coordination, or we can do it the sloppy way where we try to bulldoze Texas troops into another state.
Like, why? Get their own houses in order, clean up their own streets, and then the federal government wouldn't have to do anything. That would be vastly preferable. But these are areas plagued by homelessness and encampments and drug abuse and crime, and the residents are sick of it. And so, even though they interviewed 10 people on TV who didn't want it,
but states have sovereignty, though. States have sovereignty. Why does President Trump think he needs to overstep that? That's what I'm asking.
Okay, so we should just have no federal government, just every state.
What have we been doing the last few years?
Me.
We have law enforcement. If the federal government wants to help out, they can provide resources in the ways that local law enforcement needs resources. No, this is them trying to push their way through with their version of help. And cities do a great job at governing themselves. Like you said, the same thing that's needed in New York is not needed in Texas. And people who live there can tell you what they want.
Took over a block of the city, and the city did nothing about it for weeks.
Okay, but we're seeing today, not ancient history, that the protests there have been largely peaceful.
There was a successful insurrection.
Protests have been largely
There was an insurrection there in
the only time there was
memory.
a successful insurrection was here in the Capitol that was ignited.
Successful.
No, it wasn't.
Theirs
ignited
was
by President Trump. So he needs to worry about that and the people that he pardoned, as opposed to what's going on in Chicago or what's going on in Oregon.
No,
or
that was a successful insurrection because the rebel forces held territory for weeks. Here, there was a riot.
Yeah, people were hurt. And people got killed. What do you mean? So
the operations of the government were interrupted for like a matter of hours.
But lives were on the line. Lives of people that protect.
Somebody died in the Chaz zone too.
So both are wrong. So he needs to just worry about the people he pardoned that are dangerous criminals. He pardoned dangerous criminals. Focus on those people first, and then worry about other states. Let's talk about the people you specifically let out on the street. Many of them got rearrested. Many of them got arrested right after that again. It's not ridiculous. I don't understand. Like, what do you mean?
We're trying to arrest people now.
The A and B block of the show, we talked about oxymorons of President Trump. You want to do this, but you just pardon tons of people that were criminals, but everything he does is an oxymoron. So I just don't understand. You're arguing.
I don't understand.
Out of both sides of your mouth.
The
left wants autonomy, so Republicans should be happy. The left wants autonomy.
No prosecution of any other crimes anywhere?
No, the left wants autonomy for states.
There is one crime: entering the Capitol illegally.
To govern themselves.
Is the only thing that is a crime.
No, and killing
left views.
And killing people, hurting people. Like, what do you mean? These are all crimes.
I'm trying to lock them up.
These are all crimes.
This is why I got the guard out here.
Okay.
This is how we capture people.
States can handle it, and federal cooperation would be awesome if Trump doesn't try to strong arm and just does it like a normal president would. After Hurricane Katrina, they needed help. Well, guess what? The president coordinated with local leaders all over Louisiana and New Orleans, and that worked out well for everybody eventually because they had coordination. You can't just throw your hands in the air and say this is what Trump wants to do.
What's worked out well for my neighborhood?
No, it's not about your neighborhood, Robbie, because the same sample of the 10 people on the local news report is the same thing as telling me your experience.
Why don't you sample me 10 times?
No, it's invalid because you're just one person. Coming up,
more than just a man.
Coming up, J.B. Pritzker has a message for DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. Don't go anywhere.